So the last time Rob and I did work on a car, we lost a 10 millimeter socket somewhere in the bowels of the engine.
We eventually found it.
We found it. There's a saying, right, where find something that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I would argue that it's find people that you really love to work with and do that in a way that it still gives you enough time to focus on the things that you enjoy and love and the passions that you have, and then you'll never work a day in your life. And to be honest with you, that's really the background of what we're building here at SAX Tech and why I'm in a garage. We're filming this mini-series called Under the Hood to give you both a literal and figurative perspective of what we're trying to build here, which is we're a technology consulting firm, that's what we do, but we're honest, we're genuine, we're authentic.
We want to get under the hood, understand where you are today, and be able to develop roadmaps for people that are consumable.
We're going to talk a little bit about what we're building, what SAX Tech represents, the services that we'll provide to our clients, and we'll have a little bit of fun in the meantime too, and hopefully you kind of get a better sense of what we're all about.
Most people get in their cars and they turn the key and they drive, right? Or they press the button now and they drive. They don't think about anything, right? The modern cars will tell you, you need to bring me to somewhere for me to be fixed. If you bought a car and it broke down every single day, you were trying to drive to work, you would get rid of that car, right? Well, people feel the same way about when they go to work, but we can't expect everyone to be technologists either.
Our job is to get under your hood and really have a better understanding of how your business operates, what you're trying to achieve, what your goals are, and then ultimately designing a solution, a platform, an engine, right, that's gonna help you to achieve those goals.
I like working on cars in a group. And just the experience of hanging out in the garage, get the music going. I think it's one of those things that if you've never done it, you're really missing out.
I just need to swap out the valve cover gasket on my 1991 BMW 325i convertible, which runs perfectly and it needs just enough work where a guy like me who's a backyard mechanic can really, get his hands dirty and mess around with it without feeling too intimidated. My dad did almost all the work to his own car. It started out as a necessity. And I enjoyed working with him and getting my hands dirty. And then I graduated, so to speak, got old enough to kind of do some of my own stuff. I learned a lot.
SAX has a really great culture. So embedded in our DNA is this concept of embracing technology.
Rob and I have really put our heads together and worked on building out the thesis for SAX Tech and ultimately creating the structure of what that's going to look like in the marketplace. And if you look at the SAX client base over 70 years historically has catered towards privately owned and closely held businesses, right? Multifamily in a few different industries. And they really don't have internal technical prowess. And a lot of these firms on the outside have, kind of went further and further upstream, which leaves sort of a vacuum in that space.
All the people that used to exist 5 to 10 years ago that were servicing the mid-market at sort of an enterprise value have been consolidated. So if we can come and bring that enterprise knowledge and experience downstream at a reasonable price point, we're going to end up being leaps and miles ahead of our competition, if you will, right? Because we can see it.
A segment that's been otherwise marginalized, we intend to really put that in focus, right? Put that at the forefront and be able to deliver services that they really need to differentiate, to be successful, and to facilitate their own growth.
The thesis is really simple, and we can back this up with data. We are driving resolution of problems much, much faster than even some of the largest and, quite honestly, most expensive managed service providers in the industry, because we're giving the users the answers to the tests immediately. And we're doing that by leveraging large language models, automation, right, and integrations between the tool sets that we use. And we can do this at a very cost-effective price point.
It really is a traditional managed service or an MSP model, right, where SAX can become sort of the outside in-house IT staff, provide help desk services, remote monitoring, remediation, security. That's the first real service area. The second is professional services, so think of project work. Regardless of the size of organization that you are, if there's a specific project that you need help with, whether it be migrating to a new software platform or maybe you want to move to the cloud but you're not entirely sure how, we can come in and really help to deliver the services to make that possible. The third is really around fractional CIO, CTO, or virtual CIO services, where Rob can really kind of come in and act as sort of an interim CIO or fractional CIO or CTO for an organization that, you know, maybe needs that guidance but doesn't necessarily have the budget based on size and allocation to afford that as a full-time role. Well, that's where Rob comes in and can really provide that level of service. Last but not least is procurement. So essentially reselling. So hardware and software reselling. Throughout a lot of the engagements that we have with our clients, they need licensing, right? Whether it be software licensing, think Microsoft, you know, and several of these other major players in the space, and or hardware, right? So whether it be laptops for your staff, networking equipment, or storage and data center infrastructure, we can provide all of those.
Ooh, baby. If we can come in and tie together the second and third pieces of our business, right? The advisory piece, and tie that to digital roadmaps and plans for people, we can then tie the technology back to it. And some of that's going to be project-based. If you just want somebody to come in and sit over on top of your existing IT team, right? You don't need a full-time chief information officer or chief technology officer, but you want that level of guidance, we can provide that and help drive your internal IT team towards the future and give them some really good ideas. We can do that. And then last but not least, and I think honestly is very, very important as it relates to return on investment, is being really good at brokerage and procurement, and not just be a, you know, sort of big, you know, online shopping center, right? We want to bring a high touch approach to it.
That's
a
it.
scraper.
I got, unless you have a hand.
I have it.
Yeah, that's the resale business is tricky because a lot of people really don't understand that. There's a lot of complexity. You know, that's another thing too. Even the in-house IT teams, they don't really want to mess with that. You know, it's just a very complex thing and it's difficult for them to understand. And a lot of these vendors that they work with, they put a lot of faith and a lot of trust into to accomplish that for them. And, you know, that's a space that we played in for a long time.
You know, the real unique value proposition, or the strategic position, right, of SAX Tech is that we are part of this larger ecosystem at SAX, and we're business people with expertise in accounting. So, you know, we have teams at the firm that have very specific expertise as business advisors in certain industries. So let's say, you know, construction, right, which is a big practice for the firm. We have relationships on the SAX Tech side with a lot of the software providers specific to the construction industry. So that gives us the ability to assist our clients with the implementation of that software, being able to procure that software potentially at greater discounts, and really being sort of that one throat to choke model, right, where you don't really have to go outside. And I think that's a real strategic value that we bring as well, in addition to being a part of that SAX family.
The reality of how we operate, and I think this goes back to the level of authenticity that Rob and I are trying to provide, is, yeah, we're salespeople. It's what we do for a living. But the truth of the matter is I really just want to have a conversation, and I want to get a better sense of what your business is like.
The phone calls can cost you anything, so.
We've done this for other SAX clients too, where we'll talk to them and say, hey, you know what, you're getting a great deal, but maybe you're not getting all the services that you really need, and we can help to provide that gap. Or, you know, maybe you just need us to help oversee a project that you're working on. Whatever the case may be, we can provide that value. So
Just throw that thing.
yeah, it's garbage. I'll just get a new one. Anyway.
It was so weird.
If you get stuck, how is SAX Tech going to help you guys?
If we get stuck, SAX Tech is going to help us by letting us have another day off to finish the project. It's a science and an art.
Oh, there goes that too. Our director is sitting over there just watching.